Right, let's get started. So, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm John Paul from CAN. CAN helps lots of public sector organisations run campaigns that deliver low cost per outcomes. And we brought everyone today together to talk about children's social worker recruitment, one of the hardest tasks we've ever worked on in our time in advertising and marketing. But there are lots of opportunities, we believe, for improving children's social worker recruitment, and we want to share those with you today. I'm just going to tag this on, excuse me. So we're going to look a little bit at the challenges that one faces when one looks to recruit children's social workers, outline some of the components for a successful campaign, and then the real stars of the show. We're going to have Jav from Achieving for Children sharing his campaign to recruit children's social workers, and Emma, who at the time of this campaign was head of comms at Stoke-on-Trent City Council, sharing her campaign and some of the outcomes from that. And then we'll give you some emerging trends, things to start doing, things to move away from. We have an exciting announcement, and then some free stuff for you to share with you and your teams. Not everything in this webinar is going to be saved into the recording, and also not everything that we share here today will necessarily go into the presentation that we share afterwards. There are some bits of information that we just want to keep to this group. So if you don't mind, I'll just start by giving a bit of a situational analysis. Now, I'm sure you're all hyper aware of this, but demand for children's social workers and interventions is increasing everywhere. Financial pressure is intensifying, not just because of increased demand, but from constraints on children's teams. And also the general costs of delivering children's social work interventions are increasing as well. So this is why we want to recruit more children's social workers and bring them to our respective organisations. The challenges for running recruitment campaigns are, however, unique, and we feel it might be the toughest recruitment challenge there is out there, because you have a relatively small pool of people that you want to target and attract. There's a lot of competition from different sorts of organisations for their skills. Sometimes in some locations there are challenges around the reputation of your organisation's service. There are also many untargeted channels that are out there to use, and they don't work particularly well, which leads to very high cost per applications, or very underwhelming rates of applications when you run campaigns. So it's a tough environment. In terms of really distilling what we think the components for a successful campaign are, it cannot be overlooked, but the applicant experience, the application process, the forms, the websites have to be simple. It's so easy to put people off with over complex application processes. So simplifying that and just making it a simple piece of data capture that then someone gets a call from a member of the team is certainly our advice on the way to go. In terms of messaging, this isn't just about listing jobs. This is about convincing people that their next move should be to you. And so having an array of attractive, engaging creatives and messages is absolutely essential. And we'll be sharing some of those with you in a moment. Then you need, when you have those wonderful messages, is to put them in front of the right people. We also need to be able to measure and have transparency and see how campaigns are running. And then one of the critical ingredients that is so rare is to have time. It takes a long time to convince people to make a move, to be in front of people at the right time for them. And our suggestions are towards having almost always on campaigns. So what we wanted to do today was to share a number of campaigns that have worked incredibly well. Now, one common factor of campaigns that we've worked on at Can has been working with Alive, who are a brilliant creative agency. The ideas they come up with and the way they execute them, we haven't seen anything like it. And that translates into much better performing campaigns. So I'd like to introduce James Morton from Alive, who's going to take you through some of these campaigns. Over to you, James.
Thank you, JP. Thank you for the very kind words. And equally, you know, to bounce it back to Can as well, you know, they do an incredible job taking the creative that we create and getting it to the right people, as JP's just described, and, you know, focusing on outcomes, focusing on results, and achieving, you know, the sort of outcomes that we're looking for from campaigns like this. So yeah, so it's great to work with them and be a part of you know, a process like this. So as as JP mentioned earlier, it will really be Jav and Emma who will talk about the campaigns that we've helped you know, their organisations to run. But I'll just give you a little bit of background to sort of who we are and what we do, and then introduce them both individually. So as JP mentioned, we're a creative agency, and we kind of cover all aspects, I guess, of the comms world, anything that's got a creative element to it. So all the way from you know, being able to start with the strategies and the plans, bring that through into creative execution, whether that's branding or campaigns, design, video, any creative output really, content as well, and also, you know, we do insight work around any process, you know, if there's time and there's scope to do that, so workshops, focus groups, things like that as well. And we are also we also work across the public sector as well, through NHS, blue light services, councils, and we've done a lot of work on supporting social care in recent years. Just a range of some of the organisations and the councils there up and down the country that we've worked on social care campaigns for. A lot of that work has been focused around attraction and recruitment, and obviously that is what we'll be focusing on today. But also there's been work in there around educating and building trust in things like safeguarding, through to rebranding children's services teams and creating new identities and visions as well. So a real range of work and experience across social work. But the two campaigns in particular that we're going to look at today have both been about attracting people to come and work in children's services, and they've got kind of, they came with a very similar sort of background, a very similar brief. Primarily, what, you know, one of those key things was wanting to address the number of agency staff being used in both organisations. I think estimates vary, you know, a little bit, but the cost of an agency worker per year versus the cost of a permanent member of staff can be around 40 to 50 grand. So, you know, bringing in permanent members of staff, you know, you are looking at making significant savings per person, you know, that you do that with. So the aim of both campaigns, looking to recruit permanent, qualified social workers to create that more stable workforce. Neither campaign was focused around pay or offering recruitment incentives. They were very much based around focusing on what the two organisations could offer, their values, and what people were likely to get in terms of their career, their development, and the working environment in which they would be coming into. And as JP touched on at the start, you know, both had the backdrop of this really high level of competition for quite a small pool of applicants. So in terms of the campaign and the creative approach, it was about needing to create something that really stood out from the crowd, something that looked and felt different and offered that simple user experience that JP mentioned as well, so that, you know, applicants didn't get lost along the way. So similar backdrop to both campaigns, but two different approaches. So what I'll do is I'll introduce both presenters, and we'll start with Achieving for Children. So Jav Khan is the head of marketing and communications for Achieving for Children. And Jav, I'll let you talk through the campaign.
Thank you, James. Thank you, JP, and good afternoon, everybody. Yes, our campaign, very similarly to the next presenter you're going to see, really did focus on who we are. We had a really good conversation about what the problem is, and actually we're all competing for the same workforce. But what makes us stand out is who we are. So we really focused on that as part of this campaign. As you can see on the first bullet point, we cover children's services for 3 local authorities. So Kingston upon Thames, Richmond upon Thames, and Windsor and Maidenhead. So we're in a unique position actually in terms of that kind of offer of development and support across that organisation. So depending on where you live, actually we've got 3 catchment areas. So it kind of gave us a slightly wider net, which was quite unique and great for us. But ultimately, the issue was, just like JP said, is we needed to recruit some permanent workforce. You know, the balance of agency versus permanent, it's never great when we're talking about children. You know, we wanted to ensure that children had the same social worker throughout their case, build up that rapport and professionalism, and at the same time, the trust. So it was really key for us to ensure that our values of our company was shown in the work we do and how we do that. But by using agency workforce, the problem clearly is that, you know, they come and go. There's never any of that consistency, and that potentially could be quite damaging to the young people that we serve. So as part of this as well, we wanted to ensure there's the opportunity to ensure that we've got diversity as part of our recruitment campaign, and to also add the fact that Achieving for Children kind of stands out as a private company. We're a not-for-profit organisation actually owned by those councils. So it was really important to try and get that message across at the same time, that we're not here to make profits and, you know, grab cash from the needs of children. You know, this was about actually doing the right thing and making sure that we stood out, and that's who we were. So building our brand and spreading the message in terms of what we stand for was a key part of this campaign. If you can move to the next slide, please. Thank you. So we asked for something a bit about us, vibrant, young, youthful, you know, something that people would look and think, oh my God, is that a children's services company? And James and the team did a fantastic job in turning this around and really capturing the essence of what we were trying to be. We wanted to say that we weren't really, and excuse my language, but, you know, a boring council. You know, we did have the freedoms to do things differently. We had the chance to showcase that we could work well together, really trust and honor our staff, and really build them as part of a family. And later on, you'll see 1 or 2 of the videos, and it came across really clearly from our staff that that's exactly how they felt. They weren't briefed in terms of what to say. This was natural questions given to them, and they gave their honest answers. And that was really, really great for me, because actually I didn't have to work with the 5, 6 individuals and come up with different scripts. It was them speaking from the heart. And I think at the end of the campaign, what I really loved was it captured who AFC were. And if you do ever get a chance to visit the website and have a look at some of those videos, again, it's really compelling. And James and the team really brought that out of our people. So hopefully you agree that the assets that you can see are vibrant, they are different, but on brand at the same time. So it just gave us the opportunity to also focus on our people. Now, like most councils, we didn't have, you know, massive salary incentives, but what we did have is our culture. And what came across really strongly was that family feel, supporting one another, developing one another, and that's from management teams as well as peer-to-peer. So using our own people as part of the assets was a real win, I think, for us, and it really made us feel proud that our people were willing to step up and be the face of AFC, rather than using models, etc. So yeah, it was absolutely fantastic what we achieved with this. Thank you. Next slide. So as you can see, here's one of the digital assets that we used, and again, the vibrant colors and, you know, our people, the messages, it just caught your eye on this sea of information that we see every day on the online world. So the digital campaign really helped put us on the map in terms of who Achieving for Children are, and add a bit of curiosity in terms of, oh, they look a bit different, what are they about? So it really helped us to get some traffic to our own website. And what you'll see with the results at on the last slide is what that actually did for us as part of the campaign. I spoke earlier about the geographical nature of our organisation and having those 3 catchment areas. So actually it was quite wide ranging, and we got a lot of applicants, or certainly some interest from individuals far away. So it was really good that our brand was being seen not only across London but across the UK as well. And the campaign ran for 6 months, which was really good. And I've got some learnings from that, which I'll touch on the last slide. But there's a very quick video we're going to show you now. We'll only show you 30 or 40 seconds. You don't want to be here for minutes, just to get a flavour of what it kind of came out with. Thank you.
Having a good manager, and at the moment I feel like if I have a problem I can share anything with her, and even more senior, to be honest. I think like senior leadership are quite accessible, and if you've got a problem you can get around it. I'm probably quite attached to some of the families I work with, and I do like to see the kids I work with. Like I've just come off a home visit where we were discussing like some of the funniest things that kids do, and I just think you can't write the things that you're going to hear when you come to work.
Thank you. So hopefully that's just a little flavour of our people being real, talking from the heart. And we're really, like I said, we're really proud to use them as part of our advertising. They really stand for what achieving for children is. The outcomes, this is the key thing. And as you can see, we've got 140 expressions of interest. And JP mentioned it earlier about having that unique point where people come along and then we'll take that information and give them a call back. Giving them that call back shows that as an organisation, we're really interested in them. Again, it comes back to our values. And what was really interesting was, of those expressions of interest that we got, many of them weren't social workers. So they didn't actually get the message of the campaign that we're putting out. Actually, they were just interested in AFC. So there's the tick in terms of our brand reach. It gave us that secondary chance of getting other people to look at our company and perhaps go for jobs that weren't social work related, but certainly children's related. So for us, though, they were just as valuable as getting the social workers interested in us as well. 35 from qualified social workers. So for 6 months, I don't think that was a bad turnaround for us, considering the small pool of social workers that are out there and the catchment area. We're also talking about, you know, post-COVID, where people's lives and the way they work is very, very different. And that choice of being able to work from home versus being out there in an office. And we all understand that social workers need to also be on the road and visiting families, but people have a choice these days. So the challenge was added even further post-COVID. We got 10 applications that were completed, which was fantastic, of which 2 permanent social workers were recruited. So again, it was just right for them, right for us. And we've got an average approximate figure there of 80,000 in terms of savings. And I think that's the key for us, is versus what we could have spent on this advertising campaign, we're spending that in agency fees as well. So it's that return on investment that if we say, take the risk, do something different, put in a sum of money, and then go out there, you will be successful. For us, some of the learnings was having a robust offer for those social workers. And we certainly thought about it after the campaign, and we've actually made a lot of changes in terms of our offer around annual leave and all of the other various bits and pieces that were kind of what's in it for me as a social worker and us as an organisation, helping to promise that we're a flexible employer, and wanting to kind of help them to live their lives and that kind of work-life balance. So we're looking further now at more investment in what we do, knowing that we have a better offer now. I think the campaign will be even more successful, but ultimately we're at least on the map, thanks to JP and Can Digital, and we continue to use this branding, and we're doing another piece of work with them in the near future to get some more messages around fostering, etc., etc. So yes, a real success story for us. I'll hand back to James to hand over to the next presenter, and I take it we'll take some questions later.
Perfect. Yes, I think we will be doing that. So thank you, Jav. Really appreciate that. Really interesting point, I think, around, that sort of wider awareness of achieving for children as well, kind of almost beyond the social workers that we were trying to target, and that brand building aspect. And if we can do something that stands out and people look at you differently, there's kind of that wider appeal as well that can be there. And I would absolutely reinforce Jav's point around the social workers themselves and the staff themselves being the stars. I think the authenticity of the campaign was so central to what it did and what it achieved. Going and working with them and interviewing them, photography, video with them. As Jav said, there was very little sort of prompting and scripting needed. Their enthusiasm and their passion just came through naturally. And I think that authenticity sort of spoke volumes really throughout the whole campaign. So fantastic. So what we'll do now is, as I say, we'll move on to Stoke-on-Trent City Council, and I'll introduce Emma Rogers, who, as JP mentioned, was head of marketing and communications there at the time. Similar challenges, but a slightly different approach with this one. So I'll hand over to you, Emma.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me this afternoon. Some of the themes within this approach were very similar to Jav's. I think where it potentially might be slightly different is that before we even got to the stage of the campaign, we did a ton load of pre-work, and that was primarily because we didn't actually have a budget in the first instance. We had to build a business case to convince senior leaders to invest in some marketing that would give them a return on their investment. The context of Stoke-on-Trent at the time was we had become inadequate. It was proving quite difficult to recruit people to come and work for Stoke-on-Trent. And there was a very distinct change in approach around looking towards good and improvement for the organisation. So it was against that backdrop. We very much set out to, similar to Jav, target support workers, social workers, children's services employees that would come and stay with Stoke-on-Trent. So it was very much focused on trying to get permanent members of staff, but also to replace a lot of experienced staff who'd come up for retirement, and also to cope with the increasing numbers of children in care. So it was very much around succession planning and trying to work to evaluate our end-to-end processes. So by that I mean what happened if someone made an inquiry about working for us as a council through children's services, and I'll talk a little bit about that later. But as it says there, it was very much a values-driven campaign, so focused on why working for Stoke-on-Trent. We didn't have a salary differential. We're located next to two probably fair to say richer local authorities. We were a unitary against a backdrop of county councils who did have more salary benefits than they did at Stoke-on-Trent. So it was very much around why Stoke-on-Trent, why would you want to come and work here, particularly as we were inadequate. If you wouldn't mind moving to the next slide, please, James. So the creative approach, it evolved. Stoke-on-Trent, if you might not be aware, was very much focused on place shaping, and as part of our USP, it's about pottery and clay, and we'd originally gone with moulding, but then when we did some user testing, mould equated quite a lot of negative connotations. So whilst we in the pottery landscape didn't see that, a lot of others did, and particularly as we were trying to attract those from other areas, we needed to listen to that market testing, and so it moved to shape Stoke's future. The other element of that was people had told us that they really wanted to have opportunities that they might not be able to in other organisations. And we were very clear that anyone who we employed was empowered to be able to shape and influence the future of Stoke-on-Trent and our journey towards good. We looked at focusing on something that allowed us and enabled us to be diverse, but also that was very, very different in what was a very crowded marketplace. The other thing at the time was when we did our market research, there was a lot of campaign and marketing activity that was very serious, very drab, very grey. And this was intended to have cut through in that really busy marketplace. We also worked with regional organisations to ensure that the insight that was already in place informed our approach. And key to this was around the applications process, as Jav mentioned. We had found that actually we had a lot of abandoned applications. We also had, I think we discovered that 140 people had made contact and no one had got back to them. So I think it, aligned very much to our journey towards good and what could we do overall. So the marketing was the end element of that, but we looked at the process and the experience right the way through for anyone who potentially wanted to work for Stoke-on-Trent and made that leap of faith to contact us. So we made every contact count, really. And similarly, it took a lot of work, but across the microsite, we managed to get live job ads. Our normal recruitment site was very, very corporate. You had to search through hundreds of vacancies to even find the children's vacancies. We had long debates about what the roles should be called and what people would actually look for, because they were very historic around the roles and what they were called at Stoke-on-Trent. So we left no stone unturned, really. Whilst there was a microsite, we looked at how it would appeal to staff. We very much wanted to focus on the benefits overall, and we wanted to get across that senior leadership support. So there were videos from our portfolio leads on there. Our leader was very much around why Stoke-on-Trent and why would you want to come and live there. So housing prices at the time in Stoke-on-Trent were very affordable. So we did the full package approach, and Alive really, really helped us with that. Did you want to just show that animation, James, if that's okay?
I'm Jake Finney. I'm a social worker in safeguarding and child protection. There was a teenager who had been through significant domestic abuse. A lot of people said, you can take over this case now, but there is very little that you can do. She will never meet with you without the perpetrator being there. And it took a lot of work to build a relationship with her so that she could trust in me, and eventually, after a period of months, was able to disclose everything that was happening with this partner. And then I did a lot of work with her to build a relationship between her and her family, so that when she was able to finally realise the position that she was in and how much abuse she was being subjected to, she had a place of safety.
So that just gives you an idea there. Jake was one of our social workers, and we found that a lot of our social workers wanted to be involved, but they didn't necessarily want to front the campaign visually. So we worked with Alive to make that happen. And whilst that was a real heart-wrenching story there, it actually really had appeal around the difference that someone working in Stoke-on-Trent could make to children. We had a lot of really positive feedback about the videos and the content that we used, and because it was multi-channel, we involved partners within that, police, fire, hospitals. It just meant that our reach was significantly improved. but it also generated a sense of pride from our own social workers, who really felt that it was something positive that they could get behind, particularly against the backdrop of requires improvement and that drive towards good. So the results, I think you can see there, speak for themselves. We managed to successfully place 28 people, and it was a challenge, it was a battle. We had to look at every single part of the campaign. We had to ensure that people had the follow-up. We were speaking to people who put in applications, but then didn't want to take it further to understand more. We used insight at every step. But I think, the saving of 1.5 million there annually, again, spoke for itself. I had to convince senior leaders to put up the money for the marketing campaign, and we had to report on it every fortnight to the senior leadership team. So it didn't go without scrutiny, but it worked, and it really helped because there hadn't been an Invest to Save programme previously at Stoke-on-Trent, but it very much became a basis for many of our campaigns moving forward. So yeah, I think for all of you, it's not an easy thing. It's in a backdrop of very challenging landscape, but it's hugely worth it, and the USP of your own organisation and your own workers just goes a really, really long way. Thank you.
Thank you, Emma. That's brilliant. And very interesting to hear, very similar to Jav, how the internal impact as well on staff in the organisation, how it was received by teams and social work and children's services workers within the organisation as well. Something they could feel, if they feel represented them, that's something they get behind and rally behind as well, which is a really, a really important part of it as well. So those are the 2 case studies and 2 campaigns. Hopefully there's been some useful stuff in there. I'll hand back to JP now just to round things off.
Thank you, James, and thank you so much, Jav and Emma. There was so much in there that I hadn't even anticipated around employer brand, around the other sorts of audiences, around the immense amount of work that you have to do behind the scenes to make these campaigns successful. So thank you for sharing, and I hope there's at least a few nuggets in everything they've said that you can take back and implement where you are. I wanted to go a little bit into some of the tactics that were deployed in these campaigns and some of the tactics we see emerging. So some of these emerging trends of things that you might want to do more of when you move away from less effective channels. Firstly, to give yourself the luxury of time and to plan to be always on. To look at using search, but a very specific set of terms that only children's social workers are likely to be typing in. Also, to not necessarily always start from scratch. With tight budgets, there is the opportunity to license creative, which I'll go into in a little bit more detail. I'm going to explain something called audience building, which is basically remarketing. The use of the council estate. Your councils are the biggest media owners in their areas, but they very rarely act like it. So bringing that idea in to reduce cost per quality application is also very important. And that thing that Emma's referred to and Jav has referred to, that light touch user experience, making it really easy for someone to leave a small amount of information and then get someone to call them and speak back to them. So just looking at always on, because you have a small pool, you want to be in front of and putting these wonderful messages and creatives in front of actually quite a small number of people over a long period of time. So when you plan, too little, too late for 2 weeks is not the way to go. We want to go much more towards always on, and this problem isn't going to go away. So that approach is absolutely key. We've co-created with agency and in-house social workers, children's social workers, an array of terms which are highly likely to indicate someone is a children's social worker online. So we can then, when they type those terms in, put ads in front of them that bring them through to whatever landing page you brought together. And then as those run over time, you can see which ads are working and the kind of volume. So it's a very interesting way of intercepting people who are existing children's social workers and nudging them towards you. Another key point around this is just because someone lands and looks once, most traffic bounces. And so it's very important to use this kind of technology, remarketing technology, which you've probably experienced when you look at something online and then you see that thing popping up on news sites, on social sites and so on. When someone clicks on an ad and lands, maybe from search, we could then take those wonderful assets that Alive and Achieving for Children and Stoke-on-Trent had co-created and put the videos, the stories, the thing that really helps enhance people's view of the brand, the employer brand, and the people they might be getting to work with, and that is absolutely critical and a very, very low cost activity to do, which really enhances the impact of campaigns. Thinking of council channels, the council websites often have jobs boards and are very, very useful places to target a whole array of campaigns, but also there are assets hosted on council websites which are really useful for remarketing to, but also placing display advertising on. We often get asked to buy bus backs and out of home and things like that, and we do, but the chances of them being in front of a qualified social worker are relatively low. So you want to invest as little as possible in the kind of awareness level at the top of the funnel, but get it for free using the council estate, web, email, and out of home. So that's something really, really to think about and use. And with an always on campaign, the chances of this happening frequently increase. Now, another core approach to ensure that you've got more budget to run always on campaigns is to use creative licensing. Now, we've had agreement from Stoke-on-Trent City Council that this very successful campaign can be repurposed by Alive for your location, and that means that the cost to you would be about 1/10 of what it costs to start from scratch. So if you're interested in using these trialed and proven creatives in your area for your campaign, you can do that, and that will reduce the amount that is invested in developing your creative assets and free up more budget potentially for having an always on campaign. So that's just a really quick view of some of the ideas we're pushing, but really search, council channels, remarketing, those are the core strategies. And now you can access this wonderful creative and use it in your location too. So we will get to questions in just one moment. I just wanted to say that we've got we will edit this presentation and recording and send it to you afterwards so that you can share with colleagues or keep for future reference. We're also offering free children's social worker search insight in your location. So if you want to understand the volumes of terms being typed in your location, just drop me a line. My email address is in the invite, and we'll happily provide you a report that shows you that sort of volume. It's a really useful starting point for planning these kinds of campaigns. We also offer that kind of on-site web advertising technology for free as well. So even if you're not planning a campaign at the moment, but you have a landing page, it's well worth getting this tech plugged into your site. We will handle all of the conversations with the web team, get it up, get it running, and it works for free, and it will start generating some traffic, which could be very valuable. So there's some free things for you. Now, I just wanted to give everyone on the call the opportunity to ask some questions. So James, can you see in the chat?
Yes. And
are there any questions at the moment? And feel free now, if anything you've seen you'd like a bit of clarity on, now's your chance to ask, you know, the people who are involved. Are there any technical questions or questions around what you had to do within your service? Feel free to ask away. I take that we've been comprehensive and given you everything you need, which is great. So in terms of timings, we're in quite a good space. But just wanted to thank you all for attending, particularly to thank James and the team at Alive for taking part in this, and really to thank Jav for spending his time sharing this information with you, and also to Emma Rogers for coming to us from a new role to share some of the brilliant work that she did when she was at Stoke-on-Trent City Council. Thank you so much for that. I'm just double checking. Yes, it is similar to the journey of adoption and foster care, yeah, these techniques can certainly be used in many sorts of recruitment activity, and they're yeah, a good way of being. Good. Thank you so much for your time. Recording and presentation will be coming your way. We look forward to hopefully speaking to you in the future.